I think that my life is full of happiness now, and that would be really great. That would be great.
Sherri, au contrary. What's up, guys, and welcome back. Today we are breaking down the behavior and body language of Sherri Papini. Now, if you don't know who Sherri Papini is, she is a Californian mother, and back in 2016 she went missing. Reportedly, she had been abducted, and it later turned out that Miss Papini had actually faked her own kidnapping. Despite originally pleading guilty for faking her own kidnapping, she has now come forward to say that in fact she really was kidnapped. So let's dive into this story and see what Miss Papini has to say.
Sherri Papini, California's most infamous mom, says no one will give her a job.
It's difficult. It's difficult when you go. I've been to so many interviews, and it's like the minute they hear my name and find out who I am, it's like, we don't want the attention.
Did that feel odd to you? Did something feel off when you watched that clip? Now, let's pretend, and maybe you haven't seen anything of Sherri before, but I think even somebody who knew nothing about this woman and they watched this clip for the first time, I think their instincts would tell them something is not right about that moment. There's something off. Now let's talk about why. Why does it feel that way? There is incongruency, and that is why we get that feeling like something is wrong. We're not seeing the emotions that we should see. I want you to take a look at her face in this moment. Our real emotions don't happen this way. They don't just in a blink of an eye change like that. They actually build. And if you've seen previous interviews where somebody is talking about something traumatic or something emotional that happened to them, you will see the emotions start to build on their face. They have a voice crack, they lose fluency, they just can't even get the sentence out. We see grief on their forehead. Now, if we pause her in this moment before, her eyes are wide, her eyebrows are way up, and she's got a huge smile on her face. It's like, it's difficult. That feels unnatural. That is incongruent. That is not the expression of somebody that feels something is difficult. And then she changes quickly. She changes and her eyebrows come down. We see some muscle here on her forehead, and she says it's difficult. So she says she's going to interviews, and as soon as these people hear her name or find out who she is, they're hesitant to accept her as an employee. Now, let me ask you, how many interviews have you gone to in the last several years where they didn't know who you were? The employer or person conducting the interview didn't know who you were prior to you getting there. Like, it is so rare for that to happen in today's society. Majority of the time, you are going to submit a resume. You're probably submitting a resume online. That person already can see your name and who you are and your job history. I can't think of many situations where she would be already in an interview with somebody and they wouldn't know who she was. Even if she just walked into a business, would she still not have her resume there? Would her name still not be on the resume? Anyways, I'm getting too heated about this because already she is ticking me off. We're already starting to see the cracks in Sherri's stories and just a lot of incongruency with her body language. We also have a huge eye block there as she finishes telling the story about her process of being interviewed and not hired, just eye blocking the whole way. People will eye block when there is some sort of information or conversation happening that they don't really want to be a part of or they don't want to think about. They usually use the eyelids as a barrier to block out that information. It's a pretty common gesture, but it's amazing to see how long she does it there, basically just talking like this with her eyes closed. It's wild.
Now comes another curveball. She's telling Inside Edition she really was kidnapped, and she's blaming her ex-boyfriend.
The injuries to my body represent quite a lot of culpability, and they're injuries that I couldn't possibly do to myself.
Ugh, it is just so beyond. In this next clip here, we have another contradiction. The injuries to my body represent a lot of culpability. So very strange, and zero emotion, mind you, zero emotion. More emotion around the idea of the interview being difficult rather than her speaking about these injuries that she's sustained. There's injuries that I couldn't possibly do to myself. Now, fair enough, there is some injuries that she had which could not have been from her. She had something branded on her back. Now, it would be next to impossible for her to do that to herself. Just because she didn't do those injuries to herself doesn't mean that she didn't ask somebody to do the injuries to her. And I think that's the point that the FBI had gotten to.
He hasn't been arrested, and police say he had nothing to do with the kidnapping. Have you any concerns about being sued for defamation?
Well, you can't sue somebody for telling the truth. So if he were to do that, for example, I welcome it. I would love to get him in a courtroom. And frankly, he would have to answer to everything that he did in mutilating my body and keeping this secret.
So she says you can't sue somebody for telling the truth. I think that's a great statement. I think it's likely a statement that she's gotten from her lawyer or from her attorney. They probably had a conversation around the idea of defamation and if that would be a possibility coming from her ex. And it's interesting because we're asking, well, whose truth is the right truth? She says, I welcome that, and we see some tightness around the mouth. There's a bit of smugness there. I think that comes from this mouth area. She says, I would love to get him in court. Well, she could have done that originally. He would have had to answer all of those questions initially if she had taken him to court to begin with. We also have some anger, a little bit of anger, and there's a vocal emphasis in keeping this secret. Just at the end there, it's a little secret.
Lie after lie. Why believe you now?
I'm not actually asking anyone to believe me now. I'm simply taking my voice back to tell my story from my perspective.
So she says, I'm not actually asking anybody to believe me now. Well, Sherri, that's exactly what you're doing, because you've told one story and now you're asking everybody to believe a different story. As for body language, I don't see too much here. I mean, she is sitting with her legs crossed. Her hands are kind of cupped in her lap. Sometimes this can be seen as a barrier. Some people might say it's a bit of protection around the reproductive organs. Sometimes women will, if they feel a threat or they feel danger, they'll initially go to sort of protect those reproductive organs. She says, I'm taking my voice back. I'm telling my side of the story, my perspective. Who is she taking her voice back from? Because it was always her voice. The story was always from her perspective. It was a story that she told. She was the narrator. She constructed that story. So I'm confused when she says, I'm taking it back and I'm telling things from my perspective. It was always from your perspective. So there's a bit of incongruency there for me. And then we have this beautiful clip of her, you know, looking out the window, feeling very forlorn. Great little edit in there from Inside Edition. Thought they'd throw that in there. And she is quite an attractive person. I think particularly in this interview segment, they've kind of styled her a little bit. She's wearing white. Often white is associated with, you know, innocence. It's associated with being quite angelic.
Sherri Papini breaks down in tears as she reveals to Inside Edition her broken relationship with their 2 children.
It's the worst kind of torture.
Breaks down in tears. Did she break down in tears off camera? Did they forget to include the clip of her breaking down in tears? I didn't see any tears. I didn't see any breakdown. So I'm not sure when that happened, but allegedly it did. And she says it's the worst kind of torture. She shakes her head no. Mind you, this could be some disbelief. Sometimes people will shake their head no when they are saying, you know, I can't believe that happened. So I'll give her a pass on that. We do right after see a lip press. Her lips are pressed together, and normally when we see that gesture, we can assume that there is something being withheld. The person is literally closing their mouth so that they don't say something that they shouldn't, or that they don't give their true thoughts and opinions on the matter. They use their mouth to create a barrier.
Going from primary caregiver of your children to just nothing. I miss them. I miss them so much.
So if we jump back and we remember the conversation that we had initially around emotion being something that is built, this is what I mean. This is what we see here. This is the first instance where we've seen genuine emotion from her. This is real. She does miss her children. Now, you can say what you want about her disappearing intentionally or non-intentionally for several weeks, but this part is true. She does miss those children. We see the mouth down. We see that muscle pulling the mouth down. We see so much muscle on the forehead. The breath changes.
I miss them. I miss them so much.
She also loses fluency. Her voice goes down. She can't quite get that sentence out. It quiets. And all of these things, this is a huge cluster of emotion around this idea of missing her children.
But Sherri reveals she has zero contact with her 12-year-old son.
Why are you not able to see him?
It's a difficult process right now, and he's going through quite a lot. And unfortunately, he's just not reachable right now, so I don't know a lot. And it's not generally normal for a child to reject a parent.
So she's talking about her son here and how he's not reachable. Very odd choice of words there. Not reachable right now, feeling like perhaps she cannot reach out and hug him or hold him. To reject a parent, again, another interesting choice of words. There must be some sort of feelings around this child physically rejecting her, not wanting to be there. So she goes down into her right here with her eyes, and that seems to be the place that she's holding emotion and emotion around the children. In the next clip, we're going to see her eyes go to a different place around a different concept.
In the midst of all this drama, you may be surprised to hear Papini's other ambitions.
I know that you said that you're single. Have you thought about getting married again, having more kids?
Oh, I'm so open to it. I'm so open to it. Yeah. I think that my life is full of happiness now, and that would be really great. That would be great.
So we now have the hands out of frame, and it looks like they are locked down underneath the legs, kind of being held in place. Could be a comfortable way of sitting. She could also be trying to restrain herself from doing too many gestures, doing too much movement. It's a bit of a baited question from the interviewer. I'm not particularly a fan of that question. The interviewer with the crazy eyebrows asks her about her love life and wanting children in the future. So it does take a lot, I will say, in Sherri's defense here, it does take a lot to redirect the conversation when you're in this position, because the interviewer is the authority. You're surrounded by cameras. It's a abnormal situation if you don't do interviews a lot. It would take a lot to kind of say, like, I'm not really comfortable talking about that right now, but perhaps she is comfortable talking about it. So she does say, that's something that she looks forward to. So the eyes now go upward, very different from when they were down talking about the children. Now they are up here talking about her current life. It's not an indicator of deception. It's simply that she could store certain memories or certain ideas in one part of her brain that she goes to access to. Sometimes people will recall dates and times. They'll look up here. Sometimes it could be emotional events are usually down here. So there's all different reasons why people look to certain positions. It doesn't necessarily mean someone's lying, but it is worth noting when you see the direction change, because they're accessing a different part of their brain. They might be accessing different memories, or they might be storing, numerical information in a certain place versus emotional information in another. So it's definitely worth noting. She says, my life is, full of happiness. She shakes her head no. Again, maybe that's just some disbelief around she's so happy now she can't believe it. And we finish here with another extremely odd expression. It's so bizarre to me. It almost reminds me of if you've seen a film clip where an actor has gone from laughing to crying, or vice versa, crying to laughing, and there's just that sudden change, and it feels so unnatural. It feels kind of unsettling. That's what I see here. That's what I'm left to conclude. We have her saying really great, and there's grief and tension in the forehead. She's got this kind of big smile. It's a bit strained, and it's almost like, try and do that gesture. Just try and mimic that. It's so hard, and it feels inorganic. It feels unnatural, and that's because there's incongruency. She says she's talking about how great her life is. That would be so great, but we see not signs of great, and we see not signs of happiness around her forehead, and then this strained smile. It just feels all unnatural, and I think that's a major issue with Sherri. There's so much that is unnatural about her. There's so much that feels and looks incongruent. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and opinions on Sherri. Do you think this new story is the truth, or do you think the truth is yet to be told? If you liked this coverage, please feel free to subscribe. I'm going to be continuing to give you guys tips and tricks to help you better break down body language and human behavior. I'll see you on the next one.